use a quote I heard from Jamie Dimon, the JPMC CEO.
Uh-huh.
And this is a guy who's well known to be very sort of left of the on the left side of the aisle. What
Yeah.
he said, and I'm closely paraphrasing, he's like, bankers are dancing in the streets.
Yeah.
And he elaborated on that. He said, because we know that regulations are going to come off in a big way. So not only
Hmm.
he gave an example. He said, like, like right now, if we had $100 to lend, we're only able to lend 65 of those dollars. But now we'll be able to, lend 100.
Hmm.
But he went on to say, he's like, but I'm talking with guys from other industries, guys who have to deal with the FDA, guys who have to deal with the EPA. He said
Hmm.
across the board, when regulations get eased up, it just makes life easier and less expensive for
Yeah.
everybody. So yeah, I think that's the election does politics doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Comments like that I think illustrate the sort of the climate we should
Hmm.
expect 2025.
Cool. Very good. Very good. No, I mean, huh, I think it'll be good for business at the very least.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
agree.
So yeah, just for some context. So I'm the founder at Arctic Edge Growth Partners. So we sort of work with people in the cyberspace, help them grow their revenue and acquire new clients. And over
Mhm.
the past couple of months, we've been doing a white paper, just gathering industry insights, and we're looking to publish that maybe beginning of the year. We've had like
Sure.
over 200 people interviewed there. And then
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I was like, well, why don't we just make it a podcast, or like,
Yeah.
do a podcast instead and just make it more public and positive visibility, whatever. And so, yeah, we'll just have a 20-minute conversation about TechScreen and everything
Yeah.
there, challenge to growth. What have you guys overcome? And then
Yeah.
at the end, we'll just have like a 10-minute sort of debrief. How are
Okay.
things for you? Does that sound good?
Cool. Yeah. Absolutely.
Very good. Very good. Beautiful. Welcome to the show. We're super happy to have Mark from TechScreen on today. Mark, welcome on.
Well, Ethan, I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to a robust conversation.
There we go. There we go. Yeah, so I guess, could you start us off? Like, what do you feel like have been some of the biggest gaps you've seen in technical recruiting that sort of led you to start TechScreen?
Well, it's pretty easy. Recruiters generally are non-technical people. Now, think about this at a high level. So
Mhm.
you have two parties of deeply technical people. You have the talent on one side, then you have the managers who need to hire them. And then as a broker, you put a completely non-technical person, generally a very young professional. And
Mhm.
so it's almost impossible for them to earn any real professional credibility and respect from either audience. So they're starting out at a net negative position in terms of being regarded as a peer. And a
Mhm.
lot of that has to do with the complete lack of technical knowledge, right?
Yep.
And because most recruiters get injected into the space on the agency side, they're just put on the conveyor belt and they have to hit their numbers right away. So there's almost no time for them to usefully learn any information.
Mhm.
I, on the other hand, took a very different approach. I started in an agency, went inside to hire internally, and it was exposed to world-class technologists. And I won't bore you with the long backstory, but I
Sure.
took the next 20 years of slowly and painfully acquiring detailed technical knowledge that let me do a legitimate technical interview of candidates. And I
Mhm.
saw the impact, because what happens is a manager reads a resume, they form an opinion of what they're reading, pour cement around it, and move on.
Mhm.
And what I found is if you could present a manager with information about the candidate's worthiness based on their knowledge and competency,
Mhm.
that's not apparent on the resume, you have the opportunity to at least give that candidate a chance. So what happens is you send resume to manager, they read it, and they're looking at a resume, and I'm telling you right now, it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 30 seconds
Yep.
before they decide if they're going to read more or say next.
Mhm.
And that's why the staffing industry, now, I don't know if you're familiar with in IT staffing, the profit margins are terrible.
Yeah.
They're like at retail levels, like 4 to 5%. But if you look at
Yes.
the profit margins in service industries overall, they're high double digits.
Hmm.
And the reason IT staffing has such terrible profit margins is because most of the time they expend on activities goes to waste,
Hmm.
right? So think about this. Let me give an example. Let's
Sure.
say I was proposing to you, let's start a business in this industry X. But
Hmm.
in industry X, the probability of you chasing and closing a deal are the same odds as if you walking up to a shuffle deck of cards and drawing an ace on the first crack.
Yeah.
You'd be like, are you nuts? We're going to start a
Yeah.
business based on 13-1 odds? Well, guess what? I just described IT recruiting, IT
There you go.
staffing.
Yeah.
The statistical likelihood of a deal is equal to drawing an ace out of a deck of cards because recruiters who cannot present factual information about a candidate's competencies
Hmm.
to overcome whatever biases the manager might have or assumptions they might make about the candidate,
Hmm.
overcome them. For example, that's what led me in quite a few years ago. I was working with
Yeah.
a major telecom. They were looking for a C++ developer. I had a candidate apply, he hadn't coded in C++ in 4 years, and his
Uh-huh.
resume said so. However, I wrote an email that detailed what we talked about.
Yeah.
That got him the interview, and it generated a $22,000 fee on a candidate no recruiter in their right mind would have called in 100 years.
Yeah.
And so our
Huh.
product, in 2016, I started TechScreen as a
Hmm.
SaaS platform that presented a library of questions and answers that would be right on the screen for the recruiter so they could ask the question and then
Hmm.
being provided with the answer, at least keep up with the candidate's conversation. But
Hmm.
the shortcoming of that was that the recruiter had to be the one selecting in the screen check boxes next to a part of the narrative explanation.
Okay.
In last year, however, we released our 5.0 version, which comes with AI Verify. We have the world's only technical interview platform that can accurately score and summarize a live verbal interview on the fly. So you as a non-technical person could be in front of
Yeah.
our interface, ask a bunch of Java questions, and you could have the entire conversation go over your head like an F-22. But
Yep.
as long as you let AI Verify record the conversation, it's going to write a detailed analysis of the candidate's
Hmm.
performance on every single question and spit out a score in 2 minutes.
There you
It's the
go.
only product on the planet that can do this.
That's crazy. And like growing a company like this that is so different from what everyone else has in the market, it probably came with sort of some unique challenges. Could you maybe share like a pivotal moment where you had to pivot or rethink a strategy to drive growth? Maybe it's with implementing this new AI
Well,
system.
actually, it's. I'm so glad you asked that, but
Yep.
because I'm actually in the middle of doing that right now.
Okay.
Because the product was designed for the recruiter to independently create and conduct an interview.
Yep.
But recruiters can easily be intimidated, or if they think some action is going to take longer or
Hmm.
somehow impede their ability to get someone hired faster, they'll just send the resume. And
Yeah.
so what we're doing starting in Q4, I actually invented a methodology
Okay.
called dynamic engagement, whereby we're actually going to have some of our technical, our solution architects conduct interviews on behalf of clients, but then have active engagement and training sessions on a weekly basis, both with recruiters and if it's staffing company, also with account executives on
Okay.
how to understand. So you know how NFL teams on Mondays, they go over game film, what went right, what went wrong. So we
Yep.
actually got to be running interactive screen sharing sessions where we listen to an interview. It's like, okay, here's this question on someone explaining garbage collection in Java. Let's hear
Hmm.
the candidate's answer, the little snippet of it. Now, let's look at the screen. Why do you think AI gave that one credit when he said he didn't use the same exact term?
Hmm.
He said overriding, but the candidate said, dynamic binding. Why do
Okay.
you think this is? He's like, and so we actually are going to walk a recruiter through a live interview result
Hmm.
and explain to them, this is what you heard but here's what the AI did, and here's why they gave credit or withheld credit. And
Mhm.
so much of the training for recruiters is this, here's a spreadsheet with here are stages of the software lifecycle development. That, people don't remember things that way. But
Yeah.
if they had an experiential learning type session where they
Mhm.
can actually apply something they've heard and seen to something they might encounter themselves,
Yeah.
it's going to become much more meaningful, and it's going to resonate with them. And so
Mhm.
I had a vision a long time ago. I want to create an entire generation of IT recruiters who could independently screen a candidate using their own internal pool of knowledge, just because they have something I call conversational competence, where
Yes.
where the terminology, it's not just terminology, it's knowledge. It's not deep, 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 but at
Yeah.
least you have some contextual understanding of a subject. So
Mhm.
you would understand, here's a qualifying question for this subject. Here's what it's asking. Here's what you should expect to hear, and have their own comfortable gut level sense that, okay, I'm hearing something that I know is solid. Now, the
Mhm.
tool
And
obviously does the heavy lifting, but I want the
yeah.
recruiters to walk away learning every time they use the tool.
Mhm. And how open have you found, like when you're talking with recruiting firms, staffing firms, whatever, how
Yep.
open have they been to this new solution? Or has it been kind of like, I want to keep on doing it my old way?
Well, we'll see, because
Yeah.
this is brand new. In
Okay.
fact, I'll put a link in the thing, but I actually wrote a the three-part blog series
Okay.
that basically was sort of my epiphany. Like, I invented a new KPI for the staffing industry that
Okay.
measures the hard. It's called the yield deficit.
Okay.
And what the yield deficit does, it puts a hard dollar cost on the amount of time that was spent by a recruiter to send a candidate to a manager
Okay.
that yielded no result.
Yeah.
You still have to spend. We talked a little while ago about 13-to-1 sub to start ratio.
Yep.
You have to spend the same amount of time with those 12 candidates who didn't get placed,
Hmm.
and you're getting paid for your time, and you have a targeted uh, quota that you're supposed to hit.
Hmm.
So there's a productivity time value to, for the activity you do, and you're
Yes.
not tracking it. So most agencies have a seven-figure yield deficit in their shop because most of the time and effort spent on
Hmm.
activity that doesn't produce a result. You spent the money, they spent the time, no money for it. That's
Hmm.
why staffing has such a painfully low profit margin, because most of
Yeah,
the time expended produces no yield.
for sure. And when it comes to the, yeah, you say you're rolling out new education for this new
Yep.
product that you're doing, whatever.
Yep.
How are you currently planning to roll that out? Because I mean, other people speaking to this might also be rolling out some new product, some new offering. Like, what do you guys, if you have anything yet, have in place in order to roll this out and make sure people hear about, your new 5.0?
Well, we've been our 5.0 products out there, but this new
Okay.
delivery mechanism is
Mhm.
brand new. As a matter of fact, we're introducing it to our existing customers. In fact, I'm meeting with our biggest customer on Friday. I
There you
just
go.
met another very large, $1 billion staffing company, former
Hmm.
client who contacted us, and we're going to be rolling out to them. And what's
Okay.
nice about this is that we can start small, but it's going to grow quickly, because as soon as you have a success study that showed we took someone's office from say a 12-to-1 sub to start to a 5-to-1, they
Yeah.
just did 2x their revenue on the same amount of work.
Yep. There's no way that doesn't spread like wildfire.
Exactly. Exactly right.
Mhm. Okay, and what sort of role has marketing played in TechScreen's client base? And are there specific strategies, channels, things that have worked or things that maybe haven't?
Um, well, we've been mostly resource constrained. I mean, we've tried traditional, email sequences,
Mhm.
and to be able to blast it out. But what we've found is that in this day, it seems quite apparent that the traditional hammering the phones, just
Yeah.
sending email blasts, just don't resonate with people. Because I mean, as a business owner, I get bombarded all the time. And
For sure.
it's just my personal opinion. You can give me your feedback. I
Sure.
think I think most people have this natural reluctance to say, I'll be damned if I'm going to cave to some stone cold inbound sales pitch for
Yeah.
something I didn't wake up saying I need.
Yeah.
So it's almost like in some ways, sort of a pride thing, or they don't perceive the value that they need something like this prior to getting this cold inbound. So there's a natural reluctance just to shoo it away. And so we have to be more creative ourselves in like how do
Okay.
we get this out in the marketplace? And I think the best way to do it is to have a success case that is just a jaw dropper.
Yeah.
Um, and so we're hoping, working with our current customers, that we're going to get some of those examples. Like we had one of our best ones before our AI. In
Yeah.
fact, I had an email where our client shared with their customer the fact that we could build custom interviews and cherry pick the questions. And after having a few rejections, the manager looked at the result of the candidate interview
Yeah.
and said, make him an offer. I don't even need to talk to him. So
Yeah.
we got a hire when the manager said, I don't need to even talk to him. Just make sure he
Yeah.
doesn't get away. And that guy, not only did he get hired, he got extended twice and was on billing for 18 months for no
There you
interview,
go.
which is unheard of.
Oh, very nice. Okay, so the traditional methods haven't worked the best, and it's sort of
No,
the goal is getting the case study, wham bam, grow there.
right.
What are you hoping to achieve as far as timeline for that case study? I know there's a lot of things you can't control, but like just as far as when it
I'd like
comes
to
to,
have, I'd like to have a really compelling case study
Mhm.
documented in Q1 of this year.
There you
Um,
go.
and the nice thing is that you don't need to have a super long chunk of time to have a dramatic outcome like that. I mean, just one instance right there, you had like, I just made a placement and they didn't even need to make the interview.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't need a lot of explanation or color commentary.
Hmm.
And with our tool, and one of the reasons why we're rolling out dynamic engagements, so we are the ones conducting the interviews. It puts the control in our hands, and then and then what we also do is we create content for the salespeople for our clients. Like, you don't have to learn or perfect how to present this to your prospects and your customers. We'll
Hmm.
give you the content. We'll make branded short videos. Say, hey, check out an example of how our AI works.
Yeah.
Can I show you a demo live?
Hmm.
We want to give them the eye candy, because at the end of the day, managers, hiring managers are geeks themselves.
Yes.
So if instead of leading with, here's our one pager that says our founders have a combined 37 years in the business and we've been around for 20 years, and here are some of our customers, like everyone else in town. But
Hmm.
you show them a really compelling ROI case
Hmm.
that's obvious to a blind person, then you
Yeah.
have a much better chance of getting their attention and leading with the what's in it for them.
Hmm. Okay, and what are your main goals when it comes to TechSlice going into 2025? Like, what do you guys really want to achieve? Like, what's your big old North Star, as you would say?
Well, I would say I'd want to get dozens of companies who can independently go out and corner business entirely on their own using our tools and approach. And so
Hmm.
their salespeople can go and open doors because they understand how to present this solution. Because we're just one company, we're just a small entity. But by
Yeah.
propagating the message and the capability through
Hmm.
people who have a vested interest in closing more deals, by convincing their customers and prospects that we have a better mousetrap over here, we're
Yeah.
not going to waste your time, because we can validate that we're sending candidates who we know have the chops to do your positions. Because we're interviewing them on a set of questions that are related to the deliverables for your job. You
Hmm.
know, and I can tell you for a fact that a manager will always default to what they think of a resume. If you cannot provide evidence that compels them to consider your candidate other than what they assume from the resume, you're
Hmm.
going to be trapped in that, drawing an ace from a deck of cards level odds. I
There you
went
go.
through in one year, I'll give you an example. As a
Sure.
consultant, I was working for $1 billion software company where I was working with managers internally. I hired in 1 year 80 full-time software engineers, and I did it by submitting 117 candidates. My
Dang.
submittal to start ratio was 1.46 to 1.
There you go.
Like 68% of the people I submitted as candidates got hired.
Hmm.
And the reason for that is because the managers had confidence in my recommendation
Yes.
because it was a track record. And with AI verified, the recruiters who engage with candidates can reliably and accurately screen a candidate every time, and their counterpart in sales can go to their customers and prospects and say,
Mhm.
here's the interview result. You can listen to it for yourself, but see how well this candidate understands Java,
Mhm.
regardless of what you might think of their resume.
For
And
sure.
and I can tell you for a fact that this is managers are like Pavlov's dog when it comes to reacting to a resume.
Okay. I could definitely see that. Mm, yeah. And I guess like are there any sort of plans to expand tech slices offerings into other spaces that isn't just IT recruiting?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
we started in IT because that's my heritage,
Yeah.
but our product architecture is such that it can be applied to any expert field,
Hmm.
any of the engineerings,
Yeah.
mechanical, electrical engineering. It could be nursing. It could be biotech. It
Hmm.
could be any like legal. It could be any sort of expert field where recruiters are going, finance and accounting, where recruiters could be asking the questions as long as we had valid, curated, provably correct content. The
Hmm.
system is going to compare the candidate's answers against a curated database of provably correct, concrete, answer content, and then write the
Hmm.
report based on how well the candidate's answer lines up with what we can curate as provably correct information. IT
Okay.
is the biggest market, but that was my heritage anyways.
For sure. Okay. So there's the plans to expand. You just have to
Oh, big
get
time.
everything in space. Yeah, I can relate to what you say as far as the like I studied engineering and I had some interviews with some non-technical people and it's like it's cool, it's fun, but it's like you feel like they're missing out on something. So I think it also is going to give your applicants or your interviewees like more confidence and they're going to like the process more because they're going to
Oh,
understand that
without
they're actually being
question.
evaluated.
Oh,
Yeah.
without, I can tell you without question. I
Yeah.
could I could tell so many times on the other end of the phone where I
Huh.
would stop a candidate dead in their tracks by asking them a real question
Yeah.
because they're not expecting a recruiter to say, it's like, hey man, so explain how garbage collection works in Java.
Huh.
And and then if they seem to be getting it, it's like, okay, so walk me through the generational approach and give me some examples of how you get optimization from
Hmm.
a performance perspective. Like going down to the bone marrow. And
Yeah.
there are candidates who are just flummoxed that they're getting questions like that. But you
Yeah.
build you build credibility pretty quickly.
For sure. Then there's a massive level of respect there, I'm sure. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Awesome. Well, Mark, very much appreciate having you on here. Where is the best place to contact you if any IT people are listening, whether it be cyber security firms, IT firms are listening to this and want to get in contact with you? Where would be the
Well,
best place
just
for that?
our website, techscreen.com. There's
Hmm.
a contact section of that site, and
Hmm.
I'd recommend you go there. We have a YouTube channel as well, but I'd say the main website and contact us because we